think sleep is probably the fountain of youth that we haven't, recognized. But it's so important. I don't think I can emphasize how important sleep is. I think it's probably more important than even exercise. So on average, most students sleep about 6 hours a night, which doesn't seem that low, but in actuality, most students, especially when they're studying and trying to build memories, they need about 7 to 8 hours a night, and some need even 10. So it's important for you to know how much sleep you need. So for me to be optimally at my best at work, I need about 7 to 8. I tend to get 6. On most nights, but if I recognize the difference of how I work when I get 6 hours versus how much more productive I am when I get 7 to 8. But when I get 10 hours, the next day I'm just still very tired. So it's that magic number that most of us have that we just need to experiment with to see what that number is for us. Like I mentioned, lack of sleep tends to affect memories. So those who have sleep deprivation actually tend to have lower grades. We're so used to pulling all-nighters when we're in school because we procrastinate studying until the last minute. But when you pull that kind of all-nighter, you're actually not giving your brain a chance to take the knowledge that you've accumulated and form them into a memory that you can then express on a test. So sleep is very important when you're studying. And people that tend to sleep less also have higher levels of anxiety and depression because that lack of sleep tends to trigger this stress response in our body. It tends to release higher levels of cortisol, which can then lead to, kind of this fight or flight response. And so that kind of stress, when it's long-term and chronic, manifests then in anxiety, worry, and depression. So how do we have good sleep hygiene? Well, there's a few different ways we can practice having good sleep hygiene. One of the biggest ways is to turn off all the TVs, screens, phones an hour before your bedtime. So before we had electricity, our, circadian rhythm was used to sunrise when we got up and then sunset when we started going to bed. But now with electricity, our circadian rhythm is way off, right? We are constantly bombarded by light, and so it's harder for us to actually fall asleep. So you have to kind of practice that sunset inside your house. Dim all the lights, turn off all the screens. The second thing you can do is go to bed and wake up at the same time. So this is very important because it creates a habit. So it creates a habit where if you go to sleep at 9 p.m. every day, by the time 8 p.m. comes around, your brain's starting to shut down and wants to go to bed, which is a good thing. And if you wake up at the same time every single day, it also then creates a habit where as soon as you wake up, you feel refreshed and ready to do whatever you need to do that day. Third thing, avoid caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol close to bedtime. So, in the Indian culture, especially, where my mom is from in Gujarat, we love cha. I love drinking chai. I drink it every morning, and sometimes I want to drink it even in the evenings. But that's when we shouldn't drink caffeine, when we come home from work around 5 or 6, because that ingestion of caffeine, even if we think that it may not affect us, it can still really affect our sleep quality. And then a lot of times, especially in the Western culture, there's this belief that drinking a glass of wine or alcohol before bedtime helps sleep, but that's actually false. People can maybe fall asleep faster when they drink, but their sleep quality is impaired because they don't have the same sleep cycles as a person who didn't drink. And so it's important to kind of keep all of these things in mind. And again, exercise and meditation also help a lot when it comes to sleep. How there's now so many apps that can actually help us see how we sleep. So for example, I wear my Fitbit. So I wear this Fitbit, and every single night it tracks my sleep. And I've noticed that when I have caffeine at night, or when I, even if I exercise too late, that my sleep quality is much is much worse than when I don't do those activities.